As it evolves, the universe passes through distinct eras. Vast ages whose beginnings and endings are marked by unique milestones. The births and deaths of its wonders.
We are the product of a grand evolutionary sequence, cosmic evolution, about which we are only occasionally aware.
Gravity is the great creator, the constructor of worlds.
What is a more shocking idea? That thousands of alien civilizations are humming away in our galaxy right now, or that we are all that there is. Now, consider the numbers involved. We live in a universe with billions upon billions of stars. Our Milky Way galaxy has, at the lowest estimate, 100 billion stars or suns, and at the highest estimate, 400 billion suns. The Milky Way is only one of millions of galaxies out there in the vast cold void of space. So even if the probability of intelligent life emerging is exceedingly small, the sheer number of stars in the heavens would suggest that we really are not alone.
One of the reasons why excitement is building over the question of extraterrestrial life is that since the late 1990s, we have been discovering exoplanets. Last I saw, perhaps 3,000 candidates with maybe confirmation between 900 and 1,000 that they're there. And with every discovery that happens a few times a month, we wonder, could this be the Goldilocks planet in the habitable zone where we have water and we have the conditions ripe for life? So this is a topic that we're all concerned about, even though ufologists have been concerned about it since the late 1940s.
NASA just announced the discovery of 500 new planets. They're all orbiting other stars, not our sun, but one of them shares some similarities with Earth.
The long-range purpose of unmanned exploration of the planet is the development of technology which will lead to eventual manned exploration. Scientifically, our objective is to assist in answering two basic questions. What, if any, life forms exist on the planet? And how has the solar system been formed?
Who are the scientists that I'll be talking about? Astrobiologists primarily, but their colleagues, the astrophysicists, the astronomers, other space researchers, NASA, but primarily SETI, which you're probably familiar with, stands for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute. And their primary method is to listen for radio signals, or radio astronomy is their method for pursuing the search for off-Earth intelligence.
communications we search for mean only that we're looking for some transmission, release of energy, which is clearly a result of technology, and therefore the result of intelligent beings of some kind. It exists on only a very narrow band of frequencies. It's generally polarized very strongly in one form or another. And usually it has some modulation, some variation in its signal, which carries the information for which the signal is used. Narrow bandwidth, modulation, polarization. Those are our key tests. One of our challenges in SETI is that signals can come in a wide variety of forms. We use a limited form of coding our signals, but there are other ways of coding which would make them so that we would not recognize that they were actually signals. They might look like noise to us, and we would not realize that we had actually detected an intelligent signal. This is a problem. There are ways to solve it. They require extensive computer capability, broad bandwidth reception systems. If you're really going to do a good job, you need to watch all the time so that you don't miss any of the transients. And you have to look all over the sky because you don't know which place is most promising. And you have to look at as many frequencies as possible because you can't guess what channel is the favorite of the extraterrestrials.
There is a basic assumption at work in astrobiology, an assumption that most SETI researchers also make, and it's the assumption that evolution leads to life, and then it leads to intelligence, and it leads to science and technology. This is Chris Impey, who heads the astrobiological project at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And in Chris's words, since we, that's us on Earth, since we've only just attained the capability for space travel and communication, any civilization we encounter is likely to be far more advanced than we. If that assumption that Chris Impey makes were valid, then we would expect space to be filled with traffic from intelligent beings, but they're not there. Frank Drake believes that he has a way of formulating a research program in which we can work on this. 1960, he formulates what we now know of as the Drake equation. He starts with the Milky Way. Why not those other galaxies? Well, they're just too far away to imagine communication. The Milky Way's big, 100 to 400 billion stars. So we start with a number of stars in the Milky Way, and we take the fraction of those stars that might have planets, or that do have planets. We take the number of planets per star, and then the fraction of those planets where life begins and evolves, then the fraction of where intelligent life evolves, and then we take the fraction of those intelligent species that can communicate, at least communicate through space. And then, because there are only a certain period of time in which a given planet can support life, we have to watch the calendar, and would the time in which an off-Earth planet and Earth coincide. And finally, then he gets to the number of planets within the Milky Way with whom you and I could have communication. Well, almost everybody recognizes that there is a coherence to the Drake equation, and it's a really good, healthy set of assumptions.
According to Drake's original calculations in 1961, n equaled somewhere between 4 and 10. However, revising many of Drake's estimates with the latest scientific knowledge, we get a different result. We arrive with a new figure for n of a very low 0.00127. It means that during any 100,000 year period in our galaxy's history, around 127 detectable civilizations will crop up. Drake himself maintains an air of optimism. He has a strong conviction that extraterrestrial civilizations exist in our galaxy today. He estimates that there are about 10,000 of them in the Milky Way right now, which sounds like a lot, right? But even if all of them were detectable, it would still take a long time to find even one. If our galaxy has a minimum of 100 billion stars, then you need to search 10 million stars before you start to worry that they ain't so common.
We get the SETI program that Frank starts along with Carl Sagan and some others. Well, a few years ago, Frank was interviewed and asked, what do you think is going to happen if contact is established? And take a look at his words. Everything we know says there are other civilizations out there to be found. The discovery of such civilizations would enrich our civilization with valuable information about science, technology, and sociology. This information could directly improve our abilities to conserve and to deal with sociological problems, poverty, for example, and how to solve the energy problem and medical advances to improve human health.
I am an optimist about SETI. I believe that the large distance between the stars creates, in a way, a quarantine, making it so that it is actually not reasonable for one civilization to exploit or attack or damage another one. The great cost of doing that is far greater than any benefit that could accrue from it. So I do not feel that we are threatened by the existence of other civilizations, and that we can only learn from them and they will not damage us.
The Earth was once the center of the universe. It was flat. Then it was round, and it circled the sun. It was no longer the center of the universe. It was a tiny part of the Milky Way. The Milky Way was the only galaxy, except it wasn't. It was only one of billions of galaxies floating in space without end. Every single time we think we've got it all figured out, we realize we've merely found another piece of the picture. It is a big picture, with many pieces. Sir Isaac Newton was the first to state the law of gravity. Eventually, everybody agreed that gravity alone formed galaxies and stars and planets, and that gravity alone holds the universe together. Then we discovered a force 1,000 billion times more powerful than gravity. Until recently, we believed that the space between the stars and planets was empty, a vacuum. We now know it is teeming with charged particles. see glowing electric filaments spanning millions of light years. We see stellar and galactic formations shaped by magnetic fields. Only electric currents create magnetic fields. It is possible that the predominant force in the universe is not gravity, but something else.
Okay, now, as I said, what I want to hypothesize is that there is in this kind of thinking, both amongst our scientific researchers such as SETI and amongst many of us in ufology, a set of components that I think looks like myth. First of all, it's the inclusion of the origin of life within evolution. Both are scientific questions, but the theory of evolution has to do with speciation, how life changes from one species to another. Charles Darwin said at least 4 times in his book, The Origin of Species, I have no idea how life began. And scientists today still don't know how life began. So evolution talks about the changes in life forms, not the origin of life. Yet you cannot justify the search for ET unless you make some positive assumption about the origin of life. The second assumption that strikes me as mythological in character is that evolution is progressive, that you started out with the simple and the dumb, and then you advance to the intelligent, and the intelligent to the scientific, to the technical, etc. I just want to say, doesn't look very scientific. It looks like some assumptions built in there, and I'll elaborate on this if I'm stepping on your toes right now. Then intelligence leads to science, and then science will save the human race. You saw that in Frank Drake's speculation. Science will save the human race, its sociological problems, its medical problems, and even the problem of energy. I want to call this a myth based on a pattern of what I call the Gnostic Redeemer. Let me explain that, and then we'll see whether or not it fits what is going on. Is there a new myth brewing? We are used to thinking of the human race as having developed evolutionarily over a period of time, and the future's not here yet. Will there be in our future a species more intelligent and more capable scientifically and technologically, and maybe even more capable spiritually and ethically than we are? And if so, do they live today already in an off-Earth civilization?
I believe all mankind has that innate desire to know the origins of his being.
Astronomers from all over the world want to use the VLA to uncover the secrets of the universe.
We are adding more and more to our understanding of the universe. You don't have to be a scientist to be thrilled by that.
We've always had the night sky to look at, to ask questions about, and to wonder why it looks the way it does.
Why is it that the Earth happens to be the place where humanity has grown up? What is special about that? And the only way you can understand that is by looking at other stars, other solar systems.
The iron that's in your blood, the calcium that's in your teeth, all those things were made inside those stars.
The good thing about astronomy is that it's not just something to make profit, but it's something that actually might lift the spirits of everyone.
For me, astronomy has to be a part of any civilized society, like music or art.
But I think it's very important to be always asking questions.
All right, let's go back to the Gnostic Redeemer myth. Take that word Gnostic. It's the Greek word for knowledge. So according to this myth, salvation comes through knowledge, and this myth was prevalent amongst the Greeks and the Romans just prior to and just after the New Testament period. And the Gnostic Redeemer story goes something like this. There was originally a divine realm characterized by light, truth, unity, and then by accident, the accidental person is called the demiurge, the physical world got created. And we fell into darkness. And in the physical world, these spiritual truths are covered over by materiality and passion and the flesh. What we need is to be saved from this darkness through true knowledge. But the good news, according to this myth, is that there lies within each one of us as a human being a little spark of the divine, a little bit of that original light. And if you can imagine, in the ancient world before Thomas Edison, fires were of special interest, because if you're around a campfire late at night, you see how the flames go up. And sometimes embers will fly up, and then the smoke rises up to heaven. And so, according to that extended metaphor, this spark from within us could be fanned in such a way that it would rise up through the various levels of darkness until it returns again to the light. And what we need, according to this myth, is a teacher, someone who will come from the realm of the light and help us to realize the spark from within. Well, there were two versions of this. One calls the spark the pneuma, or the spirit. There's another version, and that is reason, or the human mind. And that's what we get from Plato and Aristotle. And it also is the version of the myth that we get at the rise of modern science. If you take a look at Galileo and Newton, they said that God thinks in mathematics, and the natural world is organized mathematically, and God gave each one of us the capacity of reason. And so when we reason about the mathematical structure of nature, we are thinking the thoughts of God. Modern science began as a form of theology or religion. About 200 years ago, God was cut off, but still this relationship between the mind and the mathematics of reality is maintained.
Although there are paradoxes about certain timescales between ancient sources and modern science, there is agreement about some of the really big cycles. For instance, noted scientist, the late Carl Sagan, said,
"The Hindu religion is the only one of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed an infinite, number of deaths and rebirths. It is the only religion in which time scales correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles run from our ordinary day and night to a day and night of Brahma, 8.64 billion years long, longer than the age of the Earth or the Sun." Physicist Fritjof Capra, in his best-selling book, wrote, "This idea of a periodically expanding and contracting universe, which involves a scale of time and space of vast proportions, has risen not only in modern cosmology, but also in ancient Indian mythology. Experiencing the universe as an organic and rhythmically moving cosmos, the Hindus were able to develop evolutionary cosmologies which come very close to our modern scientific models.
The rise of science was a triumph over mythology, over magic and superstition. That's why the word science today implies reliability. The word myth means fiction, not true. And it turns out that the key to understanding the myths is the same key that is now helping us to understand objects in deep space. To understand the workings of the physical universe.
Now, the original Gnostic Redeemer myth is vertical. You go down into darkness and you go back up into light. Could it be horizontal? I think so. I'm going to turn to philosopher Eric Voegelin here, who sees in many cultures a horizontal myth that divides history into three categories: an original paradise, a fall from paradise, and then the movement towards a new paradise. And that myth fits your and my concept of the modern world. The modern world says that the original paradise was the birth of reason in ancient Athens, and then Western civilization fell into the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages is the age of religion, dogma, rigidity, narrow-mindedness. So then with the Enlightenment and the rise of scientists such as Galileo and Newton, we retrieve the reason of ancient Athens, we embark on the era of science, and we save ourselves from the darkness of religion. Well, this concept of the modern world could only be created by those of us who live in it. Evolution is driven by the interaction of changes in inheritance acted on by natural selection, and there is no guarantee that the human race is going to survive, let alone speciate into something better than us. You could imagine a natural disaster of the type that eliminated the dinosaurs, or perhaps climate change, or perhaps nuclear self-destruction, in which the human race would go extinct.
Cataclysms will occur worldwide during the next 1,000 years. Continents will be shaken. Lands will be raised and submerged, culminating in the profound material disaster. Yet all of these events happen within naturally occurring cycles.
My point here is that the assumption that we make in astrobiology or SETI is at least controversial, not to be taken as axiomatic.
With limited tools at the disposal of modern sciences, history has been abbreviated into a narrow band that does not sufficiently explain the vast time periods needed to evolve the human form and human consciousness. Deep in our racial memory or collective consciousness lurks the legends and myths of lands and continents that once existed, such as Lemuria and Atlantis. Fabulous stories abound of advanced cultures with their arts and technologies that have risen to great heights and then fallen back into the dust of history once again.
There's one more aspect about myth that I think we ought to pay attention to, and that is you and I, when we tell myths, like to make ourselves into the hero. So let's take a look at the Freudian myth. Sigmund Freud says there are three great revolutions that make the modern world what it is. Number one, the Copernican revolution, putting the sun in the center of the universe and the earth on its periphery. Number two, the Darwinian evolution that anchors human nature in the natural world. Well, he's got to have a third. What's that third one going to be? It's the Freudian revolution. All right, now let's try to apply this to SETI and see what it is that we come up with. This is Jill Tarter, and for many years she was the director of the SETI project. Scientists really admire her. She's a good scientist, and she's provided excellent leadership. But let's just take a look at how she thinks about what we're talking about. The ETIs, or the robotic emissaries that we might connect with, are older than we are. That's another way of making this big evolutionary assumption that I mentioned earlier. Well, what about the fall from which we need to be rescued? What's that? Well, these are her words now. There, the extraterrestrial longevity is inconsistent with organized monotheistic religions on Earth. Why? Such religions are responsible for the longest lasting warfare and destruction. So we on Earth live in darkness because of violent religion. What will happen in the future in terms of getting rescued or saved from this darkness? She says there will be no sects or no religious divisions. There will be a highly established code of ethics, okay, that brings peace and tranquility. And how are we going to get it? Well, the extraterrestrials will give us the knowledge about how to get it. They may tell us how it is possible to transition from the my God versus your God conflicts to a more stable universal religion of understanding. Now, is this what you'd call empirical science? Okay, let's try to map what she is saying. Origin of life, that is the movement from chemistry to life, is just sort of glibly just stuck into the theory of evolution. Again, I want to say, it's not part of Darwin's theory of evolution. We still don't know how life began. We may discover it, to be sure, but the chances of its fitting into the theory of evolution, that is to say, variation and inheritance with natural selection, I think pretty low that that's going to be involved. Then we've got this doctrine of progress. And then right in here in human civilization, we've got the rise of religion, which is less advanced. And then we get the rise of science and technology, which saves us from the vicissitudes of religion. And then we can look to the future when science and technology will save us from all human drudgery.
Science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking. A way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a Constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
All right, now I want to turn to the field of ufology. There is a way in which people who engage in ufology and those who engage in standard science really think alike in terms of what counts as scientific evidence, yet in the face of that evidence, you get a contrary conclusion.
By the mid-1960s, the U.S. Air Force had been studying UFOs for nearly 20 years, and the American public was frustrated with their apparent lack of progress. Ufologists like physicist James E. McDonald and the Air Force's own scientific consultant, J. Allen Hynek, as well as Congressman Gerald Ford, convinced the government to turn over the study of UFOs to the scientific community. In 1966, the U.S. Air Force settled a contract for a 2-year, $500,000 study with the University of Colorado Boulder to be directed by the preeminent nuclear physicist, Dr. Edward U. Condon. In 1966, the U.S. Air Force commissioned what it intended to be the definitive study on the UFO phenomenon.
And the question is, did Dr. Condon and his researchers perform admirable science? And the answer is no.
The study was completely unprecedented, and there was a lot of debate over the proper scope, methodology, and personnel. Both Hynek and McDonald offered to join the project, but they were rejected in favor of scientists with no public position on UFO research, and consequently, no significant exposure to the UFO data. Condon and project coordinator, Robert Lowe, considered this the only way of picking unbiased analysts. While some of the team members took an active part in the research, Condon and Lowe showed little interest. 6 months into the study, Condon announced that he thought UFO research was nonsense, and that the government shouldn't be involved. He referred to those damn UFOs almost from the beginning. In discussing project strategy, Lowe wrote to university administrators that the trick would be to make the public think that the project was objective, while allowing scientists to recognize it as a group of non-believers with an almost zero expectation of finding a saucer.
Well, how do we know? Well, among other things, there's an internal memo called the Lowe Memo, in which the scientists are instructed our study should be conducted almost exclusively by non-believers. Non-believers. What role does belief play in science?
Although support for the study was high when it was first announced, people grew skeptical of the team's objectivity, particularly after ufologist Donald Keyhoe leaked Lowe's memo to the press. Lowe resigned in the ensuing controversy. Staff members David Saunders and Norman Levine were fired, and NICAP, a major private UFO research group, withdrew their support. What remained of Condon's team hired a number of outside specialists to help complete the report in 1969. The authoritatively named Scientific Study of Unidentified Flying Objects led with Condon's conclusions, in which he stated that nothing has come from UFO research that has added to scientific knowledge, and that further study could not be justified in the expectation that science will be advanced thereby. Condon also stated that the extraterrestrial hypothesis was the least likely explanation for UFOs, and that the airborne anomalies posed no threat to national security. The report was well received amongst mainstream scientists and science journalists, and an independent review requested by the Air Force from the National Academy of Sciences confirmed the project's conclusions. 12 of the 15 project members disagreed with Condon's summary, however, as did an independent report in 1970. Ufologists, including Hynek, McDonald, Saunders, and Peter Sturrock of Stanford University, were unanimously critical, pointing out several crucial flaws. First was the report's light reliance on data and its arbitrary selection of cases. The report referred to less than 140 sightings in total, despite having access to some 25,000 case reports. Nearly half of Condon's cases came from the year 1967, and very few had been identified as genuine or inexplicable UFOs by previous study. Most were relatively weak and uninteresting cases, and mostly seem to have been selected for pragmatic reasons, and not for scientific ones. Less than a quarter of the report's 1,400-plus pages were devoted to reviewing case studies. Most chapters discussed related concepts, and were authored by non-project members, often with little to no familiarity with the UFO data. Condon's introduction hardly referred to the body of the report at all, and it never made mention of the fact that study analysts failed to explain nearly a third of the sightings in the dataset.
Mr. Lowe divides the human race into two categories, believers and non-believers. Good science. The trick, he says, would be, I think, to describe the project so that to the public it would appear to be a totally objective study, but to the scientific community it would present the image of a group of non-believers trying their best to be objective, but having an almost zero expectation of finding a saucer.
All it proves is that unidentified flying objects do exist. As Hynek noted, the report does nothing to explain what these objects are. Beyond its immediate findings, however, the Condon report demonstrates the danger in expecting definitive conclusions on the basis of a single study, especially on a topic as divisive as the UFO phenomenon. Condon's botched report set ufology back by decades, and warns us of the unintended consequences of drawing government into the science of UFOs.
J. Allen Hynek, formerly consultant to the United States Air Force Blue Book program, was so incensed by the Condon report, he said the problem is that these scientists are not scientific enough. They're not open to where the evidence from UFO sightings and accounts might lead them.
Dr. Allen Hynek.
You want me to investigate flying saucers?
I want you to help me prove to the public the truth. They don't exist.
After the US government's withdrawal, American UFO research became dominated by independent groups with limited means and weak financial support. Hynek started his own group, UFOs, where he served as scientific director. Other world governments maintain official UFO research groups, and a few scholars still publish on the topic, but most have trouble getting support from other scientists. More so than any other document, the Condon report is responsible for our default denial of the UFO evidence. It has frequently been cited as the definitive word on the UFO question, and it's used as justification for denying funding to UFO research proposals. For these reasons, ufologists typically view the Condon report not only as a failure of the scientific process, but as a major setback in the political struggle to integrate ufology into mainstream science.
Let me talk about my own method here. We speak frequently of the UFO phenomenon. Well, a good way to study any phenomenon is the method of phenomenology. And the word phenomenon is based on the Greek verb phino, which means to appear, and in an appearance you have that which appears and you have the person to whom it appears. You have the object and you have the subject. If we wanted to be scientific, we'd only look at the objects. But if you're in phenomenology, you would include, well, what's going on with the subject as well? And that's where I want to put the role of myth and just include it in our study of the phenomenon of UFOs.
A quick astronomy lesson. What you're looking at here is a meteorite. That came from our solar system, basically our own intergalactic backyard. Oumuamua, by contrast, is the first observed object to come from outside of our solar system. And get this, once it got here, it behaved in ways that scientists can't quite explain, which is why this team of Harvard scientists is floating a theory that even they admit is a little out there. When Oumuamua was discovered last October, it was tumbling past the sun at 196,000 miles per hour. To some, the reddish object looked like a cigar. Others thought it was shaped like a pancake.
It looks very different from objects that we have found in the solar system.
Avi Loeb, chair of the Harvard University Astronomy Department, said Oumuamua did not behave like an ordinary asteroid or give off gas like a comet.
There seemed to be an extra force that is pushing it, and it's not clear what this push is from.
In an upcoming paper, he and a colleague offer what they call a more exotic scenario. Oumuamua may be a fully operational probe sent intentionally to Earth vicinity by an alien civilization.
If you can remember 1951, so World War II ends in 1945. During the late 40s, Robert Oppenheimer is asking that nuclear weapons be removed from the hands of the United States and placed in an international organization. He did not want to see the Cold War beginning. Harry Truman rejected that flatly. So 1951, you get to the first of, in my judgment, only 2 authentic UFO movies, The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. All the others are science fiction. And what's so important here in this movie is how the political leaders around the world cannot deal with the problem of nuclear weapons. So Klaatu comes to us from another planet. He fails to unite the terrestrial governments to deal with the threat of nuclear weapons. And he thinks, well, if the politicians can't do it, maybe the scientists can. So at the climactic conclusion of the movie, the worldwide scientific community, they could deliver world peace when the politicians can't. And we have this great speech by Klaatu, there must be security for all or no one is secure. We live in peace, we and the extraterrestrials live in peace, without arms or armies, free to pursue more profitable enterprises. And we could teach you, earthlings, if you only would learn. And so here we have the Gnostic Redeemer myth, all in contemporary imagery. I want to say that I think that this movie had an enormous influence on what then happens within the UFO phenomenon. The contactees of the 1950s are almost duplicates of Klaatu. With regard to their messages. Contemporary UFO cults, I would include the Raelians, the largest UFO religion right now.
For myself, yes, these controversial topics that are linked to the movement are, of course, a huge thing because that's what the media and the public see. But behind it is a very deeply spiritual organization with a very deep philosophy behind it. So I wouldn't say that I see it as a controversial, a religion full of controversial topics. I actually find it full of humanitarian topics that really speak to people. Yes, they're controversial because there's a lot of taboo around specific topics that we're trying to appease. The Elohim that contacted Rael in 1973. So in 1973, Claude Valorian is his name, who we now know as Rael, which of course is the Raelian movement, was contacted telepathically by those called the Elohim. So in the original Bible, we know it as God, but the original Bible actually, that text before the word God came was called Elohim, which means in plural, those who came from the sky. So in 1973, he telepathically had a call to go to a volcano crater in the Puy de la Sala in France. He went there and consecutively over 7 days, he met with an Eloha who informed him of information that they mistook the Elohim throughout humanity as gods, and they were actually humans like us that created us in their image, scientifically through the synthesis of DNA. So from this point, they explained to him also that all life on Earth was created over a series of many, many years, and that if we use science and technology to support what we are as human beings, to take away work, to take away, slavery, human labor, all of this, which we've seen over the last 100 years, how far and how quickly we've moved forward to perhaps the age of singularity, which we're coming to, and of course scientists are talking about that all around the world right now. But if we can use technology, science to support human beings, and at the same time learn how to balance our brains and understand the true meaning of what spirituality is. Doesn't meaning believing that, oh, there's this thing in the sky that's gonna curse me down if I do something wrong, but to really believe that I am an infinite being. I have infinite particles in my body, and I'm connected to the stars, to the planets, to every cell in my being, as well as I'm connected to you and this table and everyone in the room. And if through the teachings of meditation and the basis of the philosophy, which is the Raelian movement's main teachings, are meditation and happiness. Of course, freedom, respect, nonconformism, non-judgment. Those are really the basis of the organization.
Rael says, you, Earthlings, urgently need to stop nuclear weapons testing. So the UFOnauts are going to bring us global peace by overcoming this threat of self-destruction. That's the Gnostic Redeemer myth at work and becoming the core of UFO-related religions. My point here is that times change, and we now have an ecological threat that we need to be saved from, and funny thing, the UFOs want to save us from that as well. A number of things about Stan Friedman. Stan's main theme is the scientists should be more scientific than they are, and that means they should be open to evidence that UFO researchers are able to provide. If we take a look at the UFO phenomenon as a phenomenon, we have to include not just those things that are seen in the sky, and not just the personalities of those who witness them, but the role of government and its relationship to science as well.
Well, you may not have heard about this, since apparently it's not a big news story somehow, but UFOs turn out to be real. We're not kidding. Recently, the New York Times profiled a secret $22 million Pentagon program that investigated unidentified flying objects. Doesn't mean they're from outer space, but they're not identified, and they're flying, and they're objects. The program wasn't bogus. Investigators found multiple aircraft encounters they could not explain, and they've even been storing metal alloy recovered from the vicinity of these encounters. Leslie Kean wrote about this in the New York Times, that piece in question, and she also wrote a book called UFO Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. She spent years investigating UFOs with the support of former Bill Clinton Chief of Staff, by the way, John Podesta. Leslie Kean joins us tonight. Leslie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So that piece, I think, vindicated a lot of work that you've been doing for an awfully long time, and certainly got my attention, and I've stopped making fun of people like you and started paying attention. This seems like a huge story. So I know that it's vast and hard to sum up, but if you could just briskly tell us what we think we know about these sightings.
Well, we do know that there are objects in the sky and sometimes in the water that demonstrate extraordinary capabilities that experts say we don't have on this planet. We don't have the capability of creating the kind of technology or apparent technology that's been observed by high-level officials for many, many decades. The Pentagon program is the most recent discovery, but these things have been studied in other countries and by our country for many years.
So what percentage of these sightings are we sure are not weather phenomena or experimental aircraft?
Well, that's a really good question, because most sightings of UFOs that just people report are identifiable. I mean, we're talking about maybe 5 to 10% of all the sightings that are called in are not explainable. And the ones that are really of interest are the ones reported by military pilots, by commercial pilots, by trained observers, multiple witnesses, ones that are caught on radar, events that have a lot of data to support them and involve very, very credible people.
So I guess what bothers me most about this story is how clearly people who should have been following up and paying attention haven't been. And the case that sticks with me, November 7th, I think, 2006, at Chicago O'Hare Airport, 4:15 in the afternoon, gate C-25, I believe, the pilot of the plane waiting to depart to Charlotte looks up, and there is a saucer hovering not that far over the plane. People in the tower see it, other pilots see it, dozens of people see it. It's real, and the FAA refuses to investigate. How could that be?
I know, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking to me. I mean, they refuse to investigate, I think because who knows what the bigger reason probably is that they can't explain these things, and they just they don't want to deal with them. It might frighten people. They don't have enough information. They don't like to say, well, there's something hovering above an airport, but we don't know what it was. So basically, they will come up with other explanations for it, such as that it was a weather phenomenon. That's what the FAA said about O'Hare, which is really an insult to the pilots who witnessed this thing and many other observers who know that it wasn't weather. I mean, it was a metallic-looking disc-shaped object that hovered over as you said, hovered over a terminal, it's gate C-17 for about 5 minutes, and then it shot straight up through the clouds. This was an incredible aspect of the thing. It was hovering below a cloud bank, And all of a sudden it just shot straight up really fast through the cloud bank and cut a hole in it. So there was like a cookie cutter clean hole in the clouds. You could look up and see the blue on the other side. And you know, as far as anybody knows, as far as I know, and from what I've been told, we don't have machines in the sky that can do things like that.
But I mean, this is not a potato field in Maine in the 1950s at 3 in the morning. This is Chicago O'Hare, one of the busiest airports in the world, in the middle of the day, in front of sober witnesses, including pilots and the control tower. And the FAA says we're not that interested? Like, how could that be?
The world's most storied radio telescope prepares to once again open its eyes on the universe.
Copy that. We're getting ready to run the C-band observation.
In the darkness above, the light that left Hen Eyes 210 some 30 million years ago finally approaches our Earth. It has traveled more than 150 quintillion miles and persevered through gas and dust to share its secret. The VLA's dishes lock onto the faint beam of light coming from Hen Eyes 210. The radio emissions flood the telescope. And for a few short hours, two distant realms share a fleeting connection. An entirely new catalog of human knowledge is captured and recorded. And this 21st century astronomical instrument plays its part in a human journey that began many ages ago.
Jan Harzan. Let's take a look at some of Jan's words that appeared recently in the MUFON UFO Journal. Jan is speaking from his heart, and he's also speaking as a MUFON leader. Will man become more accepting of his fellow human beings once he realizes that he is not alone in the universe? Will human understanding ultimately reach a level where wars cease and mankind begins to look at all humanity as his brother, or to be taken care of and served rather than destroyed? One can only hope, and it is with this hope that MUFON proudly bears the mission statement, the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. Now, I find this inspiring. I find it something that I myself can embrace. How is it that science is going to deliver all these benefits to humanity? It seems to me there are two ways to interpret this. One would be science itself, medical science, or the other kinds of advances that we're making will make human life better. That's one alternative. The other would be that intelligent civilizations on other planets have a science so much more advanced than ours and a technology more advanced than ours that if they share that information with us, that knowledge with us, then we on Earth will be able to take a leap forward. I'm a theologian who absolutely loves science, and I love the question of extraterrestrial intelligence. Astrotheology is that branch of theology which provides a critical analysis of the contemporary space sciences, combined with an explication of classic doctrines such as creation and eschatology. Eschatology has to do with the future, for the purpose of constructing a comprehensive and meaningful understanding of our human situation within an astonishingly immense universe. So what does that mean for science? I would like to say, as an astrotheologian, clean up your science. Distinguish between what you can know empirically and what you have on the glasses with regard to myth that makes you want to so interpret your science in these salvific ways? Demythologize. Does that mean that a scientist can't speculate, can't hope? Of course. Speculation is what drives good science. And I think that the relationship between scientific research and our civilization should be characterized by hope for a better tomorrow.
Indianapolis, Aries 31 has traffic 2 o'clock, slightly above.
Can you say aircraft type?
Negative, Center. No distinct outline. Tell you the truth, the target is rather brilliant. Wait a second. He's heading right for my windshield. The traffic is approaching head on. Ultra bright and really moving. And right by us, right now. That was really close.
31, do you wish to file a report of any kind of it?
I wouldn't know what kind of report to file, Center.
This is nuts.
To my mind, the name of the game is just to use whatever strategy allows you to look at the most stars at once and never mind which ones they are. Look where most stars are in the beam. And I have a prediction. Are you running? The prediction is when we finally find a civilization, its signals will be coming from a star that's not in anybody's catalog.
You may have heard many news stories about all the thousands of exoplanets that have been discovered using the Kepler telescope. As of the 1st of July 2018, Kepler has confirmed the existence of 3,797 planets in 2,841 star systems, with 632 systems having more than one planet. If a star's planet passes in front of Kepler's view, the star will dim. If it dims, for instance once every 100 days, we can confirm that it is a planet and it takes 100 days to orbit. Kepler is really good at finding exoplanets. Before Kepler came into operation, these were the exoplanets we knew about. As you can see, most of them are many times the size of Jupiter. Since Kepler came into operation, we have discovered and confirmed the existence of thousands of exoplanets, with thousands more still unconfirmed. Remember, these are planets which have been discovered in only this patch of sky. There is still a lot more out there.
1 in 5 stars has an Earth-sized planet in a habitable zone, all right? Now, we know more than this, too, because it was just in the last year that we found out, not only when you look at our habitable zone and how important the size is that we'll get to in a minute, it already has been kind of categorizing many other systems. Now, this is one from last year. It was called Kepler 62. Some of these planets maybe only fit one category of the criteria. Maybe they have 2, but you need all 3. Why are these, they found even last year, important to know about? If they're too small, they spin too fast for life. If they're too big, they're violent storms, and many have poisonous gases. You want one the size of Earth so it has some rock. All right, and that's what we're looking for. If you get the right distance for water and the right temperature for life, and you have a foundation of a rock like our Earth's crust and its mantle, then we're looking pretty good. Now, 1,400 light years away, they have found a planet that fits all 3 criteria and closest than all of the candidates yet. Here is our sun and our Earth. Now, we rotate 365 days. They found Kepler. Now, 452b. Actually, the sun is 452, so the planet is called 452b. It's close in its days of the year, but it's a little bit bigger. It's 60% bigger than Earth, so you would expect a longer and slower rotation. The sun is actually 10% bigger than our sun, but that's okay because this planet is 5% farther away. And it's interesting to note that the temperature is pretty close to the same. Now, at 1,400 light years, I doubt we'll ever be able to visit that, but this is the closest that they have come yet. Over 4,700 objects have been categorized. Amber, it's amazing to think that of all of that, they found one and have announced today that this mission will continue to search for planets much like ours. Closest yet.
This zest to explore and exploit has clear survival value. It is an endowment that all members of the human species hold in common. It is not restricted to any one nation or ethnic group. Long before Columbus, Indonesian Argonauts in outrigger canoes explored the western Pacific. Egyptians and Libyans circumnavigated Africa, and a great fleet of ocean-going junks from Ming Dynasty China crisscrossed the Indian Ocean, established a base in Zanzibar, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and entered the Atlantic Ocean. We invest far-off places with a certain romance. The open road still softly calls. The appeal, I suspect, has been meticulously crafted by natural selection as an essential element in our survival. Catastrophic events have a way of sneaking up on us, of catching us unaware. Your own life, or your band's, might be owed to a restless few, drawn by a craving they can hardly articulate or understand, to undiscovered lands and new worlds.